Hi, I'm Dave Steer, the chair of the Department of Geosciences. Today, I'm going to introduce you to our department and the degrees that we offer, and I will show you some of the facilities that you will use when you come to the University of Akron. We offer two main degree tracks, one related to geology, the other environmental science. As you can see from the diagrams, these are interdisciplinary fields of study. As such, either program will prepare you for a variety of job options upon graduation. Our department has 9 full-time faculty members that specialize in the areas shown below. Those areas span most of the major topics needed to be a successful geologist or environmental scientist. You would find most departments in the U.S. have someone that specializes in those underlined areas that you see. Our program includes additional specialties that provide extra opportunities to broaden your skill set. When it comes to our students, our majors are split about 50-50 between geology and environmental science majors. That means you'll progress through the curriculum, taking many of the same courses at the same time with the same students. You'll be in a cohort. And as such, if you join us, I'm certain you'll make lifelong friendships as you work together tackling difficult problems, enduring hardships in the field, and working together on difficult research problems. It's important to realize that the knowledge and skills you will learn to sustain you through your professional career will be learned here at Akron. In our department, that means working with professors on research projects, working on community service projects, and participating in professional meetings in the United States and perhaps abroad. Well, why do we do this? It's because that's what employers want, quite frankly. They expect you to have a good GPA, which is indicative of the material that you've learned in the curriculum, a strong work ethic, which is derived from working on hard projects and with tenacity, and good communication skills, which comes from presenting your results at meetings or at various opportunities. And lastly, they want to see that you're excited about your profession. At Akron, we provide you the opportunity to learn the knowledge you need to be successful throughout your career. And let's face it, none of us know exactly what you'll be doing when you graduate. Therefore, you have to have a broad background that prepares you not only to start out, but to continue and evolve through your career over time. Now, in our department, you'll work with advanced instruments such as the environmental scanning electron microscope that's shown here, and you'll have opportunities to learn in the field or lab in almost every course that you take. The faculty are strong proponents of learn by doing type educational models. So every student will get to use state-of-the-art instruments and equipment. Not only do we have an electron microscope, which you would not find in many departments across the country, and you won't find in most industry. If industry needed to use that equipment, they would use a consultant. We also have a new GPR system, which is a ground-penetrating radar. This was just purchased last year. We also purchased 12 brand new optical microscopes that are state-of-the-art, the best you can buy for both industry and education. And you'll use those as a student here. And we have lots of other equipment, some found only in research laboratories. The two main curriculum programs are shown here along with some annual milestones. What you should notice is that the first 2 years of the geology and environmental science degree are very similar to one another. So you will take similar courses whether you're a geologist or environmental scientist. It's really in years 3 and 4 that there's a difference between the Bachelor of Science and the Bachelor of Arts degree. And that primarily revolves around the requirement to have calculus in the Bachelor of Science and only pre-calc in the Bachelor of Arts, which is similar across institutions anywhere in the United States. So the first 2 years, you take pretty standard courses, and then in years 3 and 4, you'll take a lot of electives. If you're in geology, there'll be mostly geology electives. If you're in environmental science, those can be in biology, chemistry, or even policy. Now, our graduates work in a variety of fields upon graduation, but I can sort of categorize them. About 30% work directly in industry, so they'll go work for an oil company, an oil service company, a mineral exploration company. traditional jobs that you would think of if you think of geology. About 30% of our students will work in government or non-government organizations such as nonprofits. That might be the Environmental Protection Agency. It might be a local water board that monitors local water quality, or a health department even. We have about a third of our students roughly that go to consulting positions. So those are generally environmental consulting firms that work on a variety of problems here locally or throughout the United States. And I would say 3 to 4 students a year, a couple students a year maybe, go on to graduate school to get a master's degree or even a PhD. Now, the typical starting salaries are shown here in comparison to the other sciences. Geology and environmental science are about in the middle of the range. So that's what you can expect after you graduate with a degree here. Petroleum geology is shown as a really high salary area, but that's generally requires a master's degree. And with the recent collapse in oil, that's probably no longer a valid number. So the other numbers are more reasonable. So now what I'm going to do is show you what some students have experienced here and things that you might experience if and when you show up here. So this student completed an environmental study on Summit Lake on the southern edge of Akron, and she analyzed cores. So they took a tube out, they stuck it down in the mud as far as it would go, and then they pulled those cores out and sampled them along the length of the core. And obviously, the deeper you go into the ground, the older the material is. And then the student did various chemical and other kinds of analyses that allowed her to figure out the environmental effects of early settlement here in Ohio, followed by the Industrial Revolution, rubber production, and then later more recent impacts of environmental regulation on sediments that fell into that lake. One of our faculty members is a world-renowned cave expert. That's our hydrologist, and he engages students in various projects to understand processes that form caves and their evolution over time. So if you're not afraid of small spaces, he takes students into wild caves. These are not, these aren't caves that have lights and nice smooth pathways. You have to climb through the cave to get back into areas that very few people have seen. The students you see here are on a structural geology field trip in the Appalachian Mountains, and it's during these activities that you learn the actual rock outcrops. The rocks that you're looking at are far more complex and more difficult to understand than the simple schematics that you looked at in your textbook. So you have to learn about them in the textbook, but if you haven't seen them in the field, then you really don't know what you're looking at. So it's really important that you go to the field and you see the real faults, the real folds in the rocks and how they're expressed. In the past, we've conducted field trips to the Bahamas, where we have a field station, and in this case, the students were studying past hurricanes. So as a hurricane washes over a reef and deposits material, those deposits build up over time, and these students went down and looked at those deposits and interpreted past hurricane frequency based on what they observed. Students you see here were taking samples to analyze the impact of mine drainage on streams in the Rocky Mountains. So in the Rocky Mountains, there's been a lot of exploration for gold, silver, and other minerals. And when those mines open up, they allow oxygen in, which then changes the chemistry of the materials that's coming out of those mines. That gets into streams and it can have an impact. And so these students were looking at that. 2 years ago, I took students on a 10-day trip to the Colorado Plateau, where we learned about the various processes that formed these national parks. And so we visited the Petrified Forest, Meteor Crater, which is not a national park, but it's a very interesting place to visit, the Grand Canyon, Zion, Capitol Reef, and Arches National Parks. And very diverse geology. It's all related in geologic time. but very different expressions of how the geology is observed in those different areas. And it was a wonderful trip that we hope to do again in the future. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of the kinds of things we do in geosciences. The pertinent contact information is here. My information is on the top. In the middle, you see Caleb Holyoke. He is our advisor. So during the academic year, he'll sit down with you, or I will sit down with you, and we'll look at what courses you're taking and map out your progress so that you can get your degree in the most efficient fashion possible, and make sure you don't miss anything. At the bottom is a student ambassador, Nicole Wagner. And so if you have a question about being a student at Akron, she's an undergraduate student who I believe is a junior this year, maybe a senior. And you can contact her and ask her, hey, what's it really like to be a student in geology at Akron? So in summary, we look forward to seeing you here next fall, and we would like you to come prepared to build some of the best memories that you'll make during your college experience.